Welcome. Let's dive right in. Have you ever looked at history and just wondered, why is it so full of religious wars, even when most religions are all about peace? Well, today's explainer unpacks a lecture that gives a pretty radical answer. It's all about a hidden history of a single soul caught in this tragic cycle of martyrdom that's been repeating for thousands of years. Let's get into this incredible story. So, the whole thing kicks off with this massive question, one that people have been wrestling with for centuries. If pretty much every major faith is built on principles like peace and love, how on earth did we end up with so much fighting in their name? It's a huge paradox, right? And it's the central mystery we're going to try and unravel today. The lecture's answer to this whole puzzle is this really fascinating concept, Bankyo Dokkan. It basically translates to all religions one root. The core idea is that all the conflict comes from us forgetting this one simple thing, that we all come from the same place. We get so caught up in the little differences that we completely miss the big universal truth we all share. And to really get that, we have to go back in time. I mean, way further back than you might be thinking. And this is where the story takes a really dramatic turn. According to the source material, this isn't just about some abstract ideas or philosophies. Nope, it's the story of a real journey. The journey of one single incredible soul on a mission that spans across the ages. Okay. So the core claim here is absolutely stunning. The soul that we know as Jesus has apparently been here before. According to this lecture, that same soul has incarnated multiple times, and every single time the mission was to bring a message of love. And every single time it met a tragically similar fate. Let's take a look at the timeline they lay out.
We're going deep into history here, way beyond any written records we have. The lecture hones in on 3 key lifetimes before the life of Jesus. Agasha on the lost continent of Atlantis, Krishna in ancient India, and Clario in the time of the pharaohs in Egypt. So, as we dig into these 3 lives, the lecture asks us to look for a repeating pattern. It's a cycle of revelation, then resistance, and then finally persecution. And the argument is that this cycle holds a really profound lesson for all of us today.
First up, we're traveling back 11,000 years to Atlantis. The lecture paints this picture of a super advanced civilization, with tech like airships and submarines. But it had also become really decadent and materialistic, and its last king was this wise ruler named Agasha.
And his message? It was completely countercultural for the time. In an age of incredible technological pride and a total fascination with psychic powers, Agasha was teaching that what really matters isn't what you can do on the outside, but the purity and love you hold inside your soul.
So here's the critical part. His teaching was a direct threat to the power structures of the day. You had these other spiritual groups whose entire authority was based on showing off occult powers. So when Agasha comes along and says, none of that matters, it's what's in your heart, they saw him as a huge challenge. It led to a coup. Agasha and his followers were executed, and the lecture actually links the negative energy from that event directly to the cataclysm that sank the whole continent.
4,000 years later, the cycle begins again. According to the lecture, that very same soul was born as the Prince Krishna in ancient India. And he had a new mission, to build an entire kingdom where politics was governed by love and protection, not by fear.
Now this was a totally radical idea for its time. Instead of making everybody serve in the military, Krishna created this small, professional army made up of his most devoted disciples. Their only job was to be a shield, to protect everyone else so that over 90% of the people could just live their lives in peace. Well, this peaceful, thriving kingdom became a massive threat to its neighbors, who all ruled through fear and crushing taxes. They were terrified their own people would get inspired by Krishna's way of doing things. So, a coalition of these rival kingdoms came up with a plan. They used a treacherous trick to lure Krishna's small army away, and then they attacked his defenseless homeland, eventually overwhelming his forces and killing Krishna in battle.
And the pattern continues. The lecture then zips us forward to Egypt about 4,000 years ago. Here, the soul incarnated as a man named Clario, a teacher who rose up to challenge the super-rigid caste system that defined Egyptian society.
I mean, you have to understand, this message was like pure dynamite in a society built on birthright. Clario was teaching that a slave with a loving heart was more noble in spirit than a cruel pharaoh. This gave an incredible amount of hope to the oppressed, who had always been told that their place in life was some kind of permanent judgment on their soul.
While the ruling class saw this as a massive threat, a direct call for rebellion, so they started a brutal crackdown.
hunting down Clario and his followers. They tried to escape and create their own separate community, a kingdom of God, but they were betrayed from within. A surprise attack led to this month-long chase that ended with Clario and his last remaining disciples taking their own lives to avoid being captured. The pattern was complete, once again.
So, okay, we've seen this pattern 3 times, a message of love getting crushed by an ideology of power. But here's the thing, according to the source, this isn't just some ancient history lesson. No, it's meant as a direct, urgent warning for us, right now. The speaker then draws this really chilling parallel. The claim is that our world today looks an awful lot like Atlantis did right before it collapsed. Just look at the comparison here. They had advanced airships, we have spacecraft. They had a decadent materialistic culture, we have our consumer-driven society. And just as they saw a rise in fringe occultism, we're seeing this huge boom in new spiritual movements. The implication is, we're living on the exact same kind of brink.
And the persecution? It's still happening. It's just evolved. In the past, as we saw, the messengers were physically killed. Today, the lecturer argues, the attacks are social. People who try to live by and speak a higher truth are often pushed to the margins. They're ridiculed in the media, and they have their careers and reputations completely destroyed. The weapon has changed from a sword to a headline, but the intent to silence the message is exactly the same.
So this all leads to the big finale, right? The most important part of the whole lecture. If we really are caught in this historical loop, is there any way to finally break free? The speaker issues a really powerful challenge. And this brings us to the ultimate call to action. The speaker basically says, look, after thousands of years of failure, humanity has to finally learn from its history. The message is crystal clear. The time for just passively standing by while truth gets crushed is over. It's presented as this huge declaration that we are at a turning point, that this is the moment we can finally break the martyr cycle for good.
And that leaves us with a really profound question to think about. If this whole story, this repeating cycle is true, what would it actually look like for us, today, to do things differently? What does it really take to recognize a message of love and actually stand up for it, instead of letting it be destroyed? That's the challenge this hidden history leaves every one of us with.